on the breakout. Gold's going to make a new all-time high.
Gold-backed ETFs seeing inflows of over $5 billion.
$0.8 trillion gold market.
Why are we the only guys that seem to understand this?
Makes your head spin. Welcome to the Kinesis community. My name is Shane Rand. We've got an exciting show for you today. You're going to be hearing from the head of operations in Africa for some really awesome updates. You're not going to want to miss out on this. And we also have none other than Andy Maguire on Talking Gold. You know, there's been some turbulence in the gold market, and Andy's going to bring us an update. I'm looking forward to that. And so for right now, let's go over for some announcements to our CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, Mr. Jai Bifulco. Jai, over to you.
Okay, so thank you, Shane. Hello and welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. I've just come on here. My name is Jai Bifulco. I'm the CMO of Kinesis. I'm here to give you some updates, really, on what's going on. Now we've got a whole bunch of this, new updates that you've seen. So we've got the App Store live. We've got the new website out there. We've got the Kinesis shop. Everything's sort of moving forward. So just a little bit on the app. We're continuously doing updates in the background with the app. You'll see that we're starting to improve the experience. We have a lot of analytics going on in the background with the app. So as you're using it and as you're interacting with it, and we'll start to look at that, monitor that, and improve the experience as time goes on, just like any other tech product out there. We will be adding other core components as they come available. We'll be improving the experience with KYC and all sorts of different little bits and pieces. So we can only look to get better and better there. Keep using it, and do keep giving us your feedback, and please rate us 5 stars on the App Store. We'd really appreciate your feedback there. And if you can, the more ratings we get, the better. And we would really appreciate, the ratings from you guys. So a little bit more of an update past the app with the website as well. Website's now been sort of upgraded, as you can see. It's got a lot more sort of a core focus happening in different areas, whether it be personal, institutional, governments, business, and whatnot. We will be bringing on new pages as we go with the website as well. For example, one of the pages we'll be bringing on in the very near future will be the audit page, where you'll be able to sort of see the audit reports we're doing, and it'll have the bars, the metal quality, and all of that sort of stuff as well. So you'll be able to see exactly how much gold is in there, the verification from the auditor, and also the bar list we've got. So that's all happening as well. And so I guess, moving on from what we've just delivered, talking about the Kinesis exchange, what we're looking at the moment internally is improving the experience on the desktop. And this will flow through into mobile as well, but mostly we're looking at changing the exchange interface. So we'll be integrating new charting and a new interface that's going to be in line with best practice. You'll be able to have technical analysis tools and the ability to draw on the charts and sort of all the things you would expect from an exchange, a good layout and a good interface. This is not looking at a protracted timeline here. We'll be looking to deliver this quite quickly, and we're already quite a way through the process here. So, what you're going to start seeing here with Kinesis is more and more of this sort of user interface and experience happening that's really going to make, the exchange come to life. And then obviously, we'll then focus out on the sending and receiving money components, just to make stuff really simple, really easy, before moving into, things like mobile banking and connecting in that area, and sending money and things like that, as we get the debit card and everything released in the future, which is also imminently upon us. One thing with the website as well, we have seen a little bit about languages and things like that. Kinesis is all inclusive, and we are looking to, go out there globally and make an impact, at a high level, with our partner network out there globally. So obviously languages are a huge component. We are about to deliver a Spanish website. So for all your Spanish speaking compadres out there, we will be releasing the Latin American Spanish on the website imminently. We have the QA happening right now, and within the next 1 or 2 weeks, you'll expect to see the first of the languages on the Kinesis website. More to follow, obviously, from there. So that's all exciting and is going to be more inclusive across the board. So I guess moving on to the first 500, we're officially now closed on the first 500 campaign. We're now, preparing a final communication on the first 500. This communication will be going out. It is a final set of instructions, a step 1, 2, 3, 4, incorporating the new app on just to box off some of the final purchases of KAU. But essentially the campaign has closed and we will be doing a count. It'll take us about a month to go in and investigate and to actually match up and marry up that, everyone's passed, the requirements and for us to sort of, make sure that everyone's got their addresses and wallets set up properly so we can issue the KBT competition and the prize competition of the KBTs. A little bit of gaming's been going on in the background there with some people trying some funny tricks and things like that. So this requires us to just make sure that everything is, proper and done right, which we'll be doing. So, give us 30 days. I think in the terms and conditions, we've given ourselves 60, but we'll try and get that finished off as soon as possible for everybody that got involved. So then what we've got from there is the pairs. So exciting news. The Bitcoin will be the first pair that we're bringing onto the exchange. And, we're going into testing on that in the next week or so. And then from there, imminently, we'll be coming out. I'm going to give any firm timeline on the Bitcoin pair coming live on the exchange, but do know that we are well underway with that and things are moving and progressing forward. And then that's going to be closely followed by Tether. And then from there, we're going to be bringing on consistently and continuously more and more pairs as we align ourselves, with various different areas in cryptocurrency as well. If there's some other things out there or other sort of tokens or coins and things like that, you might see some of those offerings come, available on the exchange as well. So from there, I just wanted to finish off. I wanted to make this very brief. There's a lot more coming, guys, and over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be sort of delivering more and more. But now we've sort of boxed off a lot of this internal sort of, the app and the website, shop, and pairs are coming on, and new exchange interfaces and things like that. We're going to be moving into, we can now put a group focus into, a new phase of development, which will see a group focus on new tech and obviously, debit card, mobile banking, but wallet delivery into partner networks as well. We've got some exciting stuff out there now where, we will soon have the ability to spin up a wallet very, very quickly. And we're talking in milliseconds and create an automated onboarding sort of flow that brings people into the Kinesis network in a very simple and easy way. And it's a way for us to sort of, start onboarding, mass populace and get them using Kinesis with many, many benefits as well through our partner networks. But obviously these things are sort of ticking along in the background. But as they happen and as we start to, get this tech and all of this sort of stuff delivered, which is definitely leading edge tech, very, very sort of, brand new 2020 sort of, this stuff is this cutting edge sort of stuff we're doing. As that comes to light, we'll be bringing on these partners and getting them to give you a little bit more of an insight into the partnership and how we're working together to sort of deliver this tech. And, it'll be an opportunity for you to sort of see who we're working with and why and how. And, this will all be coming up as well, over these next few sort of, live from the vault episodes that we'll be delivering. I guess just before I finish off, let's not forget about Indonesia. We have a lot more coming up in the future episodes there from Eric Main and Tom Coughlin, no doubt, in the future. So, as we're going through these next episodes, we look to sort of really get an update with Indonesia happening as all that stuff is rolling out. And there's much more to come. So I hope this has been informative for you, and we look forward to speaking to you again. And this is Jai Bifulco signing out. Have a great day. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Jai, for that. We're now on to Andy Maguire on this week's edition of Talking Gold. Over to you, Andy.
Thanks, Shane, for the intro. And it's been an exciting couple of weeks since we were on. In fact, in our last update, that was 2 weeks ago. Didn't time fly? we sought to address, if you remember, the elephant in the room at the time was answering questions on why gold was not rising faster than it was into what was clearly a black swan event, and why the risk markets, as we proxy the S&P 500, counterintuitively ballooned to a succession of fresh all-time highs after the pandemic commenced, which had everyone confused. Now, if you missed the webinar, please review it. But in summary, what we looked at was how the risk on stock markets was seemingly completely blinkered to the virus-driven supply chain disruptions, which are going to be extremely serious, and worse, the stock market rallies had completely discounted global growth uncertainties. Now, what these blatant counterintuitive risk-on moves illustrated is that free markets have finally morphed into managed economies. Now, also, we looked at how the multi-decade official gold price suppression scheme has painted the Fed into a corner, and how the unfactored pandemic has simply served to accelerate the process of US dollar gold price appreciation. Essentially, all that's doing is catching up to gold, making highs in every other fiat currency. And then we also looked at how, by propping up stocks instead of buying new bonds to replace, maturing paper, it drains liquidity from the entire market, which in turn will ultimately burst the stock market bubble. And this is where it gets interesting, because then last Monday, we evidenced the first illiquidity event, and all hell broke loose. Traders who've become accustomed to the Fed put, and we all know what that is, which is essentially the Fed saying, we'll buy every dip, and that's been really, since January 2019, we've seen that very aggressive. And that had assured stock market participants that no matter how overvalued stocks were, no matter what the fundamentals are, the technicals were, logic no longer mattered. If they bought every dip, they would be rewarded. It's as simple as that. But this time, they were instead rewarded with a religious experience, a global market illiquidity event that wiped out all of 2020 gains and still threatens to wipe out all of the 2019 rally too. Now, last week alone, this is mind-blowing. Global stock markets lost 6 trillion just in 1 week. US markets lost 4 trillion alone in the same period. Now, this was the fastest, most disruptive stock market decline since 1929. Now, a trillion rolls off our tongue. But to put that into context, that is a stack of $100 bills that measure 67,866 miles high. Now, these are massive, massive losses, whichever way you look at it. And somebody got hurt. Now, most traders were in high school during the last financial crisis and were incapacitated, frozen in their seats, forced to sell anything of value to offset ballooning margin calls. Gold has, of course, been the best performing asset during exactly the same period, and large swathes of paper gold and silver were actually sold just to meet margin calls from deeply underwater leveraged stock market bets. Now, I'm going to provide some context here, because we talk about this big move, and before we talk more about it, I just want to give you some context on what happened on last Friday. Now, silver is a smaller market, and silver gives us a good visibility, a much better visibility into what happens in the gold markets, which is highly, highly opaque. But because of its size, we can read the footprints, and we know who the players are. There's some actors in there, basically 3 main actors in there controlling that market. Now, silver was directionally trolled to hunt for visible long stops. Now, I'm talking about 1 day here. This is 1 day, so keep this in mind. They were trolled, that each long stop that was trolled was really the value of each singular stop was 7,200 per contract. Now, bearing in mind that one lot is 5,000 ounces. Now, just into London clearing, which is 4 p.m. UK time, we evidenced 24,000 tons of May SI futures, May silver futures exchanged, as well as 70,000 tons of over-the-counter silver exchange. Now, this is close to an unprecedented 100,000 tons of paper silver exchanged during the liquid session. This constituted an all-time record of volumes exchanged. Now, with the day's final total actually closer to 135,000 tons, that's even hard to conceive that kind of volume. This is equivalent to 5 years of annual mine production in one session. And to put that into more perspective, we fit 12 tons maximum of gold or silver into a standard Brinks or Loomis truck. If this was physical silver, it would have required 11,250 trucks stretched 70 miles up the road. I mean, yeah, it just sometimes we just have to stop for a second and look at what this market is actually doing. And furthermore, it's not even a level playing field. The bulk of the open interest, or should we call them casino chips in this case, are in the hands of just 3 market makers who operate inside this siloed casino. Now, I guarantee these same actors are now loading up buying in other words, both physical and paper silver. Now, May silver, that's the May silver contract, is already in deep backwardation to cash silver, i.e. cash silver is trading and fetching a premium to silver that can be delivered, including all its carry costs, insurance costs, etc., etc. It can be purchased. It actually costs more than that silver for May delivery. And it's being stealthily acquired at the expense of some very, very wrong-footed speculators. However, look, let's get into the most asked questions of the week. And really, this is what they're revolving around. It's about the gold price meltdown and where will gold go from here. Now, we're still expecting gold priced in US dollars to rise to fresh all-time highs. But we need to think very short term. Now, obviously, if you're a physical accumulator, this is no issue at all, but a lot of people rely on this market to trade. And so it's important to know kind of where the absolute physical support levels are. And as we discussed in our last 2 webinars, in fact, we cautioned that very short term, central planners would be forced to weigh on paper gold into the end of February, if you remember, into options expiry. But we identified that they did not want gold above 1,600 or below 1,560 at the end of the month, which was the February options expiry just last week. After which the likelihood of a gold breakout above 1,600 would come back on the front burner, but with the froth cleaned out, rise from a much stronger base. Now, in fact, gold, and this was the last 2 webinars, in fact, gold did break out above 1,600 and even challenged 1,700 following our last webinar, but it got above the paper price cap at 1,600, and we had cautioned about. So gold was brought back down so it could be marked to market inside the predetermined sweet spot, and bang on cue, front ran the massive sovereign orders we telegraphed that were sitting at 1,560. So bouncing at 1,565 essentially. However, footprints around the sell-off reveal a much, much fuller picture. Yes, margin calls were a factor in the gold price decline, but we also evidenced strong, safe haven gold flows, which would, without interference, have largely offset the margin selling flows that we've just referred to. Now let's look at the footprints, because all is not exactly as it seems, and certainly not as spun by the news wires. In our first webinar back in January, we discussed how gold and silver are foreign exchange currencies and how all currencies are centrally managed, whether it's the yen dollar, the euro dollar, etc., etc. So if you're long one side, you're short the other. It's as simple as that. Now, gold competes with the US dollar, so it's a no-brainer. It's being officially contained as a component of a centrally planned foreign exchange management. This is no conspiracy theory, it's a fact. But because of its limited physical supply and that it cannot be printed, gold is allowed to slowly appreciate without drawing too much attention. And the volatile, interim volatility is designed to really wrong foot and psyop people out of gold. But this really leads into the activities last week of the central bank of all central banks, which is the Bank of International Settlements, or as we call it, the BIS. Their gold desk in Basel, Switzerland is run by Benoit Gilson. He manages the gold sight accounts for many Western central banks. Now, whereas the gold they hold on behalf of the central banks is limited to just a scant few hundred tons, it is in the massive related accrued derivative exposure that is actually in the crosshairs, particularly when these positions have to be marked to market every month end. Now, that's all we saw. As wholesalers, we get a very good view into the physical support levels, the levels that central banks don't want gold below, but also the levels that the Bank of International Settlements are trying to contain. Now, we just outlined them. However, what we evidenced on Friday was the need for the Bank of International Settlements to drive gold below 1,600 at the critical mark-to-market event. Now, we estimate this derivative exposure to be close to $1 trillion. So, a no-brainer. Of course, it had to be brought down. At a cost, though. Now, it was these additional official short-selling flows that enabled gold to be brought down almost $100. But this intervention, as I say, has come at a price. It's enabled very large accumulations of tightening physical supply and enforced a retrenchment of resistance to much closer to $1,700. However, a move through 1,700 will force a move into cash settlement of derivative bets, which encompass trillions of dollars of unallocated gold accounts, which in turn will self-feed a physical rally as paper gold is ditched. And obviously, the price of real gold bullion will therefore explode. Now, we're really privileged to witness the historic reset of a broken banking system and a move by global central banks to begin to back currencies with gold. Now, the BRICS countries are leading the way. As wholesalers, we see large off-grid bilateral outflows of cheap US dollar gold price bullion into China and Russia in particular. And we talked about in our first webinar about the 1,000 tons that by October that Russia had already bought and versus the 200 tons disclosed. And of course, China is also a no-brainer. Of course, they're accruing this silently. Now, this will ultimately force discipline on the Western central banks trying to manage gold. So we see a gold revaluation as inevitable. And this is why the timing of the global Kinesis physically gold-backed currency is so exciting. Even to an old timer like me, I mean, the paper market drivers are increasingly leveraged on less and less physical. And the one-to-one gold and silver-backed Kinesis monetary system has a strong tailwind behind it that is obviously going to benefit us all. Now, from a key, and this is important to me, because I've been in the markets a long time. I've acted as a whistleblower, I've provided evidence to the DOJ, the CFTC about the bad actors who, by the way, are suddenly in the crosshairs again. But from a key physical supply demand perspective, the upcoming massive shift from paper to physical gold and silver comes just as our gold-backed Kinesis monetary system gains traction with government partnerships, exchanges, government clearinghouses, agreements with Sharia organizations. And you're just about to hear from about one more global initiative from Christiaan, who is our Africa our Africa representative. And so again, this is all so exciting. But as Tom outlined in our last webinar, watch this space as it's just one more of many upcoming sequential initiatives and rollouts. And also, we're going to encourage you, check out the new website and download the Kinesis mobile app, just launched this past week. So in the meantime, I'm going to love you and leave you. We'll have another update in 2 weeks. And I'm back to you, Shane.
All right, Andy Maguire, thank you so much for that valuable update and timely update. We appreciate that. Now let's head over to Africa.
Thank you, Shane. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, look, I was just on LinkedIn and I was reading a little bit more about you in preparation for the call here today. And I noticed something that really stood out and I wanted to make it the first question. It says here that you actually started your first entrepreneurial endeavor at the age of 11. Maybe start off by telling us about that. 11 years old. I don't think I've ever met anyone, or I don't think I've ever known someone who started a business at 11. So I'm looking forward to hearing directly from you.
Well, I must say, I think there must be a couple of people out there who started their business at 11. You know, I was one of the fortunate ones to have the entrepreneurial spirit within me from a young age. So, I mean, at 11, I was at school. Obviously, I looked after my teachers and my fellow peers, fixed their computers, uploaded Windows 75, Windows 98 at that time, you know, a long time ago. And yeah, I mean, that is where, you know, this passion grew. And of course, you know, from there, I was even washing cars on the afternoon to get a bit of money in. And on entrepreneurial days, I was probably always the top seller, you know, at these events.
All right. Well, Christian, also it says that you actually left school at the age of 16 to start your career. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I left school due to financial reasons, and honestly, because I just felt, you know, I've got, you know, an early lead in terms of my entrepreneurial background as well, and how I want to start my life. You know, I didn't want to go through the normal system. So at the age of 16, you know, I sold a couple of products. In fact, in the first year, in 6 months, we achieved 25 million rands worth of sales on a inspiratory muscle training device. It was absolutely an amazing time for me, because that is when I've actually learned the adulthood of entrepreneurship. So that's where I've started, you know, getting into this whole vibe of what is business really all about.
I noticed also you've been involved in finance and mining, energy, wellness, hotel development, road construction, the housing industry. That's pretty impressive. It's amazing. Tell us, how did you come to know about Kinesis, or how did you meet Tom Coughlin, our CEO?
Okay, so between 2017 and 2018, I was taking a bit of a leap year, for argument's sake, just to look at what the environment is doing, what is out there. And of course, at that time, you know, Bitcoin was hitting a high. You know, I was a bit more drawn towards blockchain, and I did research on probably about 80 to 150 different projects. And I stumbled across Kinesis because I was looking for something special. Okay, it's difficult in this market to find really, honestly, something special. And I first saw the introduction video that I had, the very first video that I had. And I was just, you know, pasted to it. And I went through the blueprint, I went through the white papers, joined the Telegram group, and I've reached out to Tom. And I said, Tom, this is something that we need in Africa. And I think it was October 2018 when I had my first conversation with Tom. And it pretty much just grew from there. I think Tom saw, you know, the opportunity of Africa actually being almost like a centerpiece of the Kinesis monetary system.
That's amazing. Maybe you can give us you know, we have a global audience, of course. People from all over the world are tuning in. Give us a little perspective about the current financial landscape in Africa, in your opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Africa is actually quite special, you know, and irrespective of the past of Africa, I think there's a paradigm shift happening, a pan-African paradigm shift, which is happening, you know, an awakening. And we've seen this, you know, in West Africa, we've seen this East Africa, the Central African and the Southern African, you know, regions in Africa. Just by the way, about 6 to 10% of total African population, and we're talking about 1.2 to 1.3 billion people, make use of a Visa and MasterCard card, a physical card. So that's a very small number of people that makes use of the actual plastic. And this is predominantly out of South Africa, Kenya, Morocco, Nigeria. So the great thing about Africa is your other actors, your disruptive actors like M-Pesa, Airtel, all those other guys came in with a mobile solution. And Africa accepted it, it opened itself up to it, and people are on a daily basis using their mobile phone to make transactions, buy their airtime, buy their electricity, pay for their bread. And it has also created, you know, this entrepreneurship model where you have, for argument's sake, merchants that is located all over, let's use Kenya for argument's sake, all over Kenya, where they accept cash and deposit this into onto your phone, and you can send that to a family member within a country or even cross-border. So Africa, at a stage, is an exceptionally important market, and there are actually studies that's been done at this stage where they said that Africa will do in 10 years what China did in 20 years. So with the influx of investment, increased investment in your financial technology, your healthcare technology, all the different types of technologies, you'll see this explosion that's going to happen in Africa, and ultimately it's going to be technology that's going to lead this African Renaissance, which we are busy experiencing, and it's really exciting period for Africa.
Wow. Well, I know, Christian, that you can't mention any names for legal reasons, but maybe you can give the community members here some clues as to what's happening in all over Africa right now with Kinesis.
Yeah, sure. Where do I start? Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. I'm sitting here in South Africa in Cape Town on the stage. Right in front of me, we have our core team of developers from our new partners. And the exciting part about this is if we look at accessibility. So we look for partners that can strategically align with our mission as well, and this is what we have achieved with these partners. So basically, they have developed their systems, their wallet systems, which is also connected, to a virtual wallet, and they also provide physical cards. And this wallet can launch within 30 milliseconds. So just to give you a baseline on numbers, just from this partnership. In South Africa alone, we look at signing about 10 million wallets within the first year, just from this one partnership. And then moving this up into Africa, there's other regions which is now also sticking their heads out in terms of listening. How can we speed up integration with Kinesis, so that we can ultimately start using gold and silver not only as a spendable currency, but also as a currency to store value. Now, let me use an example here. In South Africa, and I think many of the community members will know this, we have undertaking now to deploy Kinesis, or deploy and train your rural women and men and entrepreneurs and farmers on using the Kinesis system. So there are about 90 agri-villages, and each agri-village has between 50 and 250 residents who all contribute to this agri-village economy. So we will physically go to them, train them in setting up their Kinesis accounts. But the amazing part here, Shane, is that whatever they earn with their farming activities, they will switch over into Kinesis currencies for stability. And when they pay the suppliers, they'll use Kinesis currencies to pay their suppliers. So we have looked at what is really the need. There are different layers. The people at the bottom of the pyramid. Then you've got higher layers as well. People with more money. They can afford larger amounts of gold, silver, or transactions. But we need to look after everyone here, and this is where this whole agricultural farmer thing also comes from. And it is something that the whole of Africa will adopt at some stage, because Africa is, apart from technology, a frontier when it comes to agriculture. And Africa will eventually end up feeding the entire planet as things stand right now.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. It's exciting to hear all these developments. Can you tell us a little bit about the South African FinTech Hub and what that's about?
Yes, so over the past 4 months, we have been working at setting up the South African FinTech Hub. So Kinesis are one of the founders of the South African FinTech Hub. Now, when you look at Africa, you actually look at one very big community, and that is what people don't understand. So the African FinTech Hub basically connects into other railways of FinTech associations, such as the African FinTech Network as well. And Kinesis is also a member of the African FinTech Network, which opens us up to about 32 countries at this stage. So we can give a lot of input in terms of blockchain and I'm going to put it as, you offer the input in terms of what can be achievable within an African environment, and also bring other entrepreneurs on board, other fintech companies on board, to join also what you bring into the market. So everyone is willing to learn from everyone, and with this African FinTech Hub, we're engaging with this African regulator. We're engaging with regulators all over Africa. We bring in other role players who might be competitors. However, the whole thing with this industry is that, irrespective of someone being a competitor, you can still work together with the other person, because we can all make something out of this. The market is big enough for everyone to make something out of it and to grow. So the South African FinTech Hub, has been positioned for us as a strategic asset, in the sense that it allows us to communicate directly, with the regulators, with the general market, and also with that, if you look at Africa and South Africa, women in fintech is very important. We had an interview with 400 women with one of our partners who are based in fintech, and these are top-notch, wonderful ladies that's been working very, very hard, growing their communities, but with the means of fintech. And with that, we can launch so many other type of platforms in terms of education, taking Kinesis to the market, encouraging uptake amongst women on the Kinesis system, because a lot of the rural communities are predominantly women-based as well, women being the main income earners for their families. So that is also very, very important for us to achieve by this African FinTech Hub.
Wow, that's a lot of information there. Now, you've been involved for a little more, about 2 years, but maybe let's look forward a little bit. And what do you see in the future? Let's look out a year, 3 years, 5 years down the road. What are you seeing in Africa as it relates to Kinesis? Yeah.
Yes. So what I'm seeing in Africa over the next 3 to 5 years for Kinesis, it basically comes down to two things. Africa will become far more acceptable to fintech type of platforms. Okay, and this is a good thing for Kinesis, because there's a drive to understand the difference that these technologies can do to the individual and to governments, and also speed up the process of development on the African continent. So Kinesis is actually in a prime position with what it's offering right now to go into an African economy, provide an alternative economic system, be it parallel or be it separate, as a separate entity, in order to promote economic growth within the African continent, and also the different African countries. So let's take, for argument's sake, a small country like Djibouti, that is a borderline Somalia. So Djibouti is a very interesting case, because there's only about 980,000 people living in Djibouti. However, they are also planning at this stage becoming a gold trading hub. Okay, setting up an economic system based on gold and silver, well, mostly gold. And because they are coastal orientated, the Indian Ocean, covering the Middle East and so forth, they would want to make themselves a trade zone of gold and silver. So that is one of the type of scenarios where Kinesis will play a crucial role. And then when you move to West Africa, you look at Ghana, you look at Guinea, you look at Nigeria, 170 million, 190 million people, all looking for something that will ultimately take their nairas and converting it into something that will hold, their value over a specific period of time. So you've got a lot of concentration happening in Africa, and also a very young market. And this suits Kinesis because it's a young market that's ultimately going to drive the uptake of Kinesis in Africa over the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow, it sounds like there's a lot of excitement happening right now in Africa. And in wrapping up the show today, Christian, can you give our community members maybe another clue of what's coming? I know everyone's fired up. I know that you're there's only so much you can say, but maybe you can give us another clue.
So, something that's actually very exciting to me, I get very excited when I do tests on the various systems. So yesterday morning, as I said, I'm here in Cape Town. We were sitting with one of the main developers. We go out to a filling station, into a shop to buy water. I used my Apple Watch with a virtual card to purchase that bottle of still water. And the transaction time was about 3 to 5 seconds.
Wow.
So imagine that linked to the Kinesis system, and you're able to switch between a crypto debit card or a fiat debit card within seconds and make a transaction using your Apple iPhone, your Android phone, or your Apple Watch, for argument's sake. So, it was amazing to experience it firsthand, and then all of a sudden all the lights gone, and exactly that this is the direction that we are supposed to be taking, and it is now time that we get this into the hands of the mass market. So over the next year, as Tom said in his interview and so on, 2020 is going to be a year of full focus and push on Kinesis's end. And I do not think the community has anything to worry about. There are many good strategic partnerships coming on board. And I just think at this stage, we just need good general support from the community, and also understand that things do take time. However, we are pretty much now on the road in terms of getting out good products for the mass market.
Hey, Christian, that's great. My understanding is that you have other partnerships as well on the way. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
With our partnerships, okay, so one of our partnerships are based on a ticketing platform, and with this ticketing platform, what we plan to do is when someone buys a ticket for a rugby, soccer, rock concert, whatever they want to buy a ticket for, even commercial traveling, from place to place, we will automatically launch within milliseconds, 30 milliseconds, an automatic wallet, which would trigger on our end a wallet creation process for the individual. So that means an instant wallet as that person purchases a ticket. Now, this is via one of our strategic partnerships, and this will create a considerable amount of growth velocity in terms of how many individuals. I mean, look from a worldwide perspective. In the US, I think the ticketing industry is about $80 billion. In Africa, the ticketing industry is run about $20-30 billion, if I'm correct. So, and this is from the whole of Africa. So if we are able to push through a wallet as quickly as possible onto an individual's cell phone, then that will be a win for Kinesis. And then going to the other end, the more ultra high net worth individuals. So we will also be launching a service with our partners. They have about between 100 and 350 billionaires on their platform, and these guys want specific products, things that a normal person, can't get access to. And it's a concierge type of business. So with them, for argument's sake, we'll be looking at minting, set up a wallet, minting new gold into the Kinesis platform. Holding it there, and then use that to pay for the yearly subscription, to pay for the flights, and also all of these very expensive type of, like going on yachts, and gambling or some, all those different products. So this is what a concierge service will provide via, the Kinesis monetary system, and it's something that we are very, very excited about as well.
Well, it sounds like, for example, ticketing is for the masses. You've got the high-end covered, and you've also got the people that are, not making so much money, but are going to use it to be able to facilitate payments and receive their own payments. So we've got the whole market from lower right up to upper.
Precisely. And when you look at the lower end, those are people that will send $2, $5, $10. So there's going to be this constant velocity that's happening, from one point to another point. And in fact, the other day I did a test, from South Africa into Uganda, and basically the individual is sitting in Uganda. He sent me Ugandan shillings. It took 3 seconds for those shillings to be sent to me. Ugandan and Tanzanian and Kenyan shillings. He sent me his code that for his payment for his coffee and his water. And from South Africa, I paid his coffee and his cool drink or his water right from my cell phone. And the transaction took 5 seconds, and 3 seconds later he showed me, he took a picture for me, and he showed me that the transaction is showing on the merchant's POS. And that alone, just shows, the quicker money can move on a continent like Africa, the faster you'll be able to add value to a person's business, to an individual and a person's business. So this is exactly where the Kinesis system just fits so perfectly into onto the African continent.
That part was very important because it kind of gives the community the sense of how big this is, right? Even that ticketing, we're talking probably millions and millions of transactions in South Africa alone, or in Africa alone, right? And then the fact that it can even duplicate, right? You can take that model and say, let's duplicate it over here, or duplicate it, right?
Precisely. And then, when you have the ticketing in place, Shane, okay, then you have people that can also then send, a wallet request to another cell phone number. So irrespective of whether a person buys a ticket or not, they will still invite their friends. And this is how this thing just so out of 10 million people, get an extra 2 or 3 million people, for argument's sake. And that's how you exponentially grow the system out as well.
Awesome. That's excellent. Well, everyone, you've been listening to the head of African operations at Kinesis Money, Mr. Christiaan Roesch. And I want to thank you so much. Now, look, in the future, can we invite you back to the vault to give us updates as they develop?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. I actually would love to in the future actually show anyone from our community, go to a garage or a shop and make a transaction right from the wallet and pay in gold. So the next shot, I hope we can do that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us in the vault today, and we look forward to hearing from you in the near future. Bye for now. Thanks a lot.
Shane, cheers. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone, that concludes this week's Live from the Vault. I hope you're appreciating these bi-weekly episodes, and don't forget to download the app. Just go on Apple and Google, Kinesis app. It's simple, it's easy to download. I got mine. It works really well. Thank you very much, Kinesis. And we'll see you next time on Live from the Vault. Bye for now.